Okay,
I'll
cool.
you.
Cool. I'm like, I can talk about
it.
so much. Hi, my name is Cherae Robinson, and I'm the founder and CEO of Tastemakers Africa.
Thank you for joining me. Look, let's just jump straight into it. I want to know from you. You're a firm believer of like running your own race.
Yes.
How did you, at least remain still in so much noise in the global world? Everything pretty left and right.
Yeah.
How do you navigate that?
I think for me, I knew that while I was building a business, ultimately it was about walking in my purpose. And being able to be rooted in that really allows me to sort of know how to move and when to move and when not to move.
Okay.
But it's not as simple as it seems. Like, I too get distracted. I too compare myself to everybody. I look at what this business is, or this person is, or this person's influencing, and this person got that partnership. And so I go through those things, but it's about being able to snap out of it and sort of go back to your why.
Okay.
So that has really helped me. And it's funny, sometimes I'm like on top of it and I can do that. And sometimes it takes maybe one of my colleagues that's building this with me, or a curator, to say something like, oh my God, I made X amount of money this week and this is crazy, to like snap me back into it. So it's self-management and like really putting in, like, I journal every day. I have a word of the day, so like I write down one word that I kind of want to live every single day. But it's also about letting your external environment give you signals when you can't like find it yourself to stay focused, because the world is super noisy. So you can find quiet within yourself, but also you can find that stillness like in your circle and your community, as long as you build one that supports that.
And speaking about that, you started this in 2014.
Technically, yeah.
Yeah.
Technically, end of 2014.
What other business ventures did you go into before being like, okay, this is the one?
Probably answer that a little bit differently. So I'd never been an entrepreneur.
Okay.
I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. I just wanted to be an ambassador for the U.S. government. That's all I ever wanted to do.
Okay.
Tastemakers itself has been 3 different business ventures. So when I started in 2014, it was called Rare Customs, and it was supposed to be like a consulting firm for tourism boards. So I thought that I would give tourism boards advice on how to market to Black millennials. That's what I thought I would do.
Okay.
And so I remember in New York, I didn't know anybody in any tourism boards. So I went to all the consulates and embassies, like the African consulates in New York, like a door-to-door salesman, and I had like printed out a presentation, and I was like bringing it to them with my ideas, and they all took the meetings, and no one ever called me back. So that definitely didn't work. So then I was like, oh, we should build an app, like a Tastemakers app, where you could like find restaurants and people. Mind you, I'm not an engineer or an app developer, and like a self-taught graphic designer. So needless to say, I want to start a competition in Nigeria called She Leads Africa based on this idea. I had by then started to do our first group trip, but like that was it.
Hard shit regardless.
Actually released the site and like we're ready to go. So it's not even been a full year in this iteration of business. So we've literally been like 3 or 4 different businesses.
That's crazy. And what has been like the one consistent like pain point in having this after?
Consistent pain point. Managing quality. So managing quality from the perspective of like quality assurance, like the actual experience themselves, but also things like quality of customer service when your business is growing really fast and you're still a really small team, managing quality of like the overall brand. So like when you're in a market, it's a lot easier to like secure that, but the minute you leave and you have to then pass that on, like that's a different ballgame. And so that is, I mean, so quality and talent are sort of twin issues that in every iteration of the business has been something we've had to really think through, and sometimes we've gotten it wrong. More times than not now we get it right, but we had to learn a lot of tough lessons before we got to the place we are now.
Which is brings me to my follow-up on that. Is there anything you don't like about your job?
Don't like about my job. I mean, in that sense, no. In that I am one of the few people on the earth that gets to wake up every morning and work on something that they thought of that is now like a full-blown business. And so I don't take that for granted. I also get to do a business that's pretty much who I am in business form. So I've always been passionate about Black people. I've always been passionate about Africa. I've always been passionate about establishing and building bridges. And so for me to be able to build a company that lets hopefully one day millions of people do that.
What can I say to you? What can I do? What can I say to you?
People forget your humanity, and they and I get it. Like, you're spending money, so I signed up for you to do that. I signed up for you to be in a transaction with me, but that part can be overwhelming at times, especially when you're like trying your best and things just aren't going how you want them, and like you're like begging for grace, but like you run a business. You're in the capitalist world, so like people need to get what they paid for. And so just as we grow, constantly thinking about like systems to ensure, like, so that kind of stuff is definitely like a part I wish didn't have to be a part of it, but it also makes you better.
Which the one thing you said that stood out was your passion for Africa.
Yeah.
And I want to know, why do you think it's important to change the narrative of continent? Why do you find that?
So this is going to sound like a lot, but I think that the transatlantic slave trade changed the world. I think before that people had slavery, but it wasn't about race or anything like that. So you didn't have this crazy like skin color value, like how we value people and intelligence. Like, that didn't exist. And not only did it change the mindset of people and put race as this disruptor, it also sapped talent and resources and shredded culture, you know, across the continent, and displaced people all around the world who've been trying to figure it out ever since. And I think until the world reckons with that, we will always be having problems. And so for me, like, changing the narrative on Africa is really just changing the narrative of the world. Like that's how important. I don't think it's just important for Africa. I think it's important for the world to see the source of Blackness as great. Because up until now, it's been seen as like poverty. So like when the source of who you are is branded as impoverished, or only talks about lions and safaris, like how are you, as a person that walks around, you can't escape this identity.
Yeah.
How are you supposed to then see value in yourself? So for me, like, it's like that fundamental, and I think like it's that necessary.
Which then, I guess, taking that and you having tastemakers and you growing, what are some of the strategies that you apply for like funding? How do you go out there and like, listen, I have this idea, please invest?
A combination of being like, in many ways, like our own biggest champion. Like, I'll talk about Tastemakers to anyone who will listen. And this was when Tastemakers was like called Real Customs in a PowerPoint. And, you know, a lot of people tell their story of their, like, I basically failed at 3 other things before I found the business model that worked. But the whole time, I'm still telling everyone each of those iterations was the greatest thing since sliced bread. So I think it's like, a lot of times you think you're supposed to get something right or perfect. That's just never gonna happen. Like, Elon Musk is still fucking up a whole billionaire, you know what I mean? So like, we have to get out of that thinking. So I think for me it was that. I entered a lot of startup competitions, and even if you don't win, it's just good practice on learning how to like pitch yourself and pitch your business. So like that helped me like get initial funding and also visibility. So if you win a startup competition, if they're worth their salt, they're gonna do a press release, they're gonna have some media around it, and we live in a world where like hype rules. So like it was so funny. I won She Leads Africa, and like the next week I was in Forbes top African entrepreneurs to watch, and I thought it was hilarious because I was like, I don't know about it. How am I? But like, it was just evidence of like, this is how this works. Like my first investor read that article. At the end of the day, he still evaluated me on myself, my team, and the quality of my business. But that little validation like helped. And so, you know, getting media, enlisting others, like those things help. I think the other part is like really getting down to dollars and cents. And this was something I had to do when I was ready to get bigger checks. So when I was getting 10K and 5K checks, like that took one level of effort. But to get someone to give you $250,000, that required me to be willing to learn. I remember our first big investor had like an advisory firm helping him make decisions, and they told him not to invest in me. They were like, she doesn't know finance, like she's shit. And I was. Like, I didn't know shit, and I basically took the approach of like, let me focus on the things I'm good at and like brush these things under. And so he was really convicted. So he was like, I'm investing anyway, so you guys are gonna have to help her. And I had to be humble enough to go sit and learn how to build a financial model, how to make it elastic, because I didn't know. And if I would have been a different kind of person, then maybe I would have run from that. But even still, like I still force myself to like learn the things I don't know. The other thing is just networks. Like you can't raise money by yourself. There has to be other people who believe in you, who are willing to have conversations on your behalf, because you just never know. Especially when you're trying to get to your first million. I think it becomes a lot more systematic later, but I'm not there yet. But I know, especially as a person of color or a person from the continent, like trying to raise your first million is more art than science. It's like having chance meetings that you don't know where they're gonna. I mean, my biggest investor, I closed him over like mezcal cocktails.
What can I do?